Today, I am ranking every Kanye West album post-Donda. Yes, now that we have had a few weeks to listen to Donda a few times and let it marinate a little bit, as we always should with music, I wanted to re-rank every Kanye album. And this time I am including his collab albums of Watch the Throne with Jay-Z and Kids See Ghosts with Kid Cudi, although I am not including Cruel Summer, the Good Music collab album, because Kanye isn't on every song, and I just felt like it didn't seem fair to compare it to the rest. I want to preface by saying I am a huge Kanye fan and I love every single one of these albums, so this list was nearly impossible to make. So without further ado, here is every Kanye album ranked. However, just like the last list I made, I am putting Jesus Is King at number 12. This was Kanye's first venture into gospel music, and although I really do love this album, I just don't think it stands up to the rest of his discography. The whole album felt like it was full of cuts that came straight from the Bible almost. And as a Kanye fan, I always respected him doing that and staying true to himself, and I know that's what he was trying to do, and I really do respect the album for that. But it just didn't feel as personable and as intimate as a lot of his other projects because of the amount of non-secular lyrics within the project. The production as a whole was still unique and original, as Kanye always does, and there's definitely a lot of beautiful cuts on this record. I just feel like this album doesn't vibe as much as a whole and doesn't gel as much as a whole as all of his other projects. With that being said, coming in at number 11 is Ye. Ye was part of the 7-song album series from 2018 where Kanye produced himself, Kids See Ghosts with Kid Cudi, Pusha T's Daytona, Tiana Taylor, and Nas albums. This 7-song album is amazing with beautiful cuts like Violent Crimes and Ghost Town, working with artists like Kid Cudi and 070 Shake. But the album as a whole felt a bit rushed and unfinished compared to his other projects. At least that is what a large majority of people think, or so I've seen. And he was basically doing an album of week that summer, so maybe he did rush this album out a little bit too quickly. Although I don't think that was the point of those albums that summer. I think the whole point was getting 5 albums out in 5 weeks, which is still extremely impressive. He still has bangers on this project like Yikes and All Mine, which are amazing cuts. I just don't think this project stands up to the others. Kanye's discography is so great, so it's weird saying some of these albums coming in at number 10, coming in at number 9, which feels so low, but compared to his own projects, his discography is so great that Kanye's 10 is better than most rappers' top 3. And this is where we really separate from the pack, and I feel like albums 10 through 5 can really be put in any order, you know, based on an individual's subjective opinion and nostalgia that they relate to these projects. But coming in at number 10, I have Yeezus. Yeezus was Kanye's dark rock album full of heavy auto-tune usage and these big synth productions. Kanye's use of 808s is still in there heavily as well. High-level songs like Blood on the Leaves, Black Skinhead, and Bound 2 were songs that could really put this album in the top 5. Not to mention, he calls himself a god on one of the songs, and I'm not sure what 2021 Kanye feels about him having a song called I Am a God. I've always wondered about what he would feel about that today. I can't believe I'm saying this, but at number 9, I have 808s and Heartbreak. This was a revolutionary album where Kanye experimented with the 808 drum and really used it as an instrument rather than just a bass line or a simple kick drum. This album was a huge turn in artistry for Kanye because it was nothing that we had ever heard from him before with his first 3 albums. Now, this album was a huge influence on future music to come and even a lot of today's albums. You know, with the heavy 808 and the heavy auto-tune usage, where do you think it came? A lot of it came from 808s and Heartbreak and influenced your favorite artists. Songs like Paranoid, Heartless, and Streetlights make this album a surefire classic. At number 8, I'm going with The Life of Pablo, and this album was a living, breathing project where Kanye actually made tweaks to this album weeks after it was already released, which is something, once again, we've never seen before. Kanye always so forward-thinking. This 20-track album is full of high-level tracks and gems like No More Parties in LA with Kendrick Lamar, Wolves, Ultralight Beam, and Father Stretch My Hand. So many glorious epic tracks on this album. And even though there are a couple weaker cuts on this album than 808s and Heartbreak, the highs are so high and the production is so amazing and the lyrical value on this album is so great that I had to put it ahead of 808s and Heartbreak. At number 7, I'm going with Kids See Ghosts with Kid Cudi. This album was also part of the 7-song albums that Ye put out in 2018. And the thing is with this one, these 7 songs are all hits. There's not really a miss on this entire project. Kanye and Cudi's chemistry is almost unmatched, and the production on this album was far superior than Ye in my opinion. Kanye and Cudi really make a classic duo, especially on songs like Fourth Dimension, Free, and Reborn, which are all amazing cuts from this project. Now coming in at number 6, I am going to put Donda. And I am putting this album right in the middle of the pack just because it did come out a few weeks ago, so I have had a few weeks to listen to this album pretty much nonstop, really marinate it and let it settle in. And since I've listened to it so thoroughly, right now I really do believe it deserves this number 6 spot. And the reason being because this 27 song project doesn't really have any misses either, and that's why it's higher than Kids See Ghosts, because he basically went 27 for 27. And this was Kanye's second attempt at gospel, and I think he did it right this time, because this time he felt more human, it was more intimate, it was more personal, rather than just hearing him basically preach for 10 songs. I mean, there's songs all across the spectrum on this album. There's bangers like Off the Grid and Praise God, but there's also chill jams like Moon and Remote Control. And there's also very spiritual and inspirational songs like Keep My Spirit Alive, Jesus Lord, and Come to Life. This was some of Kanye's best production ever, I really believe. And we will see how this ages in years to come, but that's just how I feel about it after a few weeks of it being out. So we'll see where this album lands on this list next year or the next time Kanye releases again. So we made it to the top 5, and at number 5, I'm putting Watch the Throne with Jay-Z. I mean, what else can I say? It's a collab album with Jay-Z, Kanye and Jay. They're brothers. Their chemistry really is unmatched. So it had to be a top 5, and this album was an instant classic, and it's pretty easy to see. It's soulful, full of rock and consciousness. The production was absolutely epic, using everything from opera to strings, and once again, big synths that Kanye is so good at producing. And lyrically, it is one of his best projects because of his chemistry with Jay. I felt like they really pushed each other to write better and better verses throughout the album. I really say we need to Watch the Throne 2 because it would be such an amazing project and it would be so great for hip hop and music in general. Coming in at number 4, I have Late Registration. In 2005, Kanye really experimented with orchestral production in hip hop and it worked brilliantly. With it being a bit more slower and intimate than what we had heard on the College Dropout. But those big strings and orchestral scores really took this album to a whole other level. Songs like Drive Slow, Roses, Hey Mama, and Gone really made this album an instant classic, not even to mention hits like Gold Digger and Touch the Sky. And coming in at 3, I have Graduation. In 2007, Kanye and 50 Cent had this big battle between themselves, seeing who could sell the most records in one week after they had dropped on the same day, and Kanye blew 50 Cent out of the water, selling more than 957,000 copies, I believe, in 1 week, which is insane, and we will never see those numbers again in the age of streaming. This was when Kanye really first used these heavy synths and a lot more electronic sounding music. Songs like Stronger, Good Life, Flashing Lights, and Can't Tell Me Nothing were such heavy hitters and made the album an instant classic. And he still had soulful cuts on here like the old Kanye that we knew in songs like Everything I Am and I Wonder, which made this album such an inspirational, great project. This is honestly one of my personal favorite albums. This album has no skips for me whatsoever. Coming in at number 2, I have the College Dropout. Kanye's debut album definitely stands the test of time. In the early 2000s, Kanye was chopping up the soul. He was chopping up the samples that he was so great at. This production was absolutely insane for the early 2000s. And Kanye just knows how to find and use samples like no one else in the industry does, and he proved it right off the bat with College Dropout. It's like Yeezus Walks, Through the Wire, All Falls Down, and Slow Jams were the epitome of this album. So soulful, so fantastic and pleasant to the ears. Kanye had the soul and it was beautiful. It's a very hard album to top, and this album aged like a very fine wine, which means coming in at number 1, Kanye West's best album of all time is My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. And in my opinion, this album undoubtedly takes the cake. This album is as near perfect as you can get lyrically, sonically, production-wise, everything. There is not one skip on this album whatsoever. The production is so epic and grand on every song. This album definitely has Kanye's best production. And I will say it till I'm blue in the face until the day I die that this is Kanye's best album. And I even think it's one of the greatest albums of this century. The man had Rihanna, Kid Cudi, Raekwon, Pusha T, Rick Ross, Nicki Minaj, Swizz Beatz, John Legend, and more on this album. All legendary artists working together in a collaborative effort to make what is almost the most perfect album of all time. The beautiful production of All of the Lights in Runaway, the edginess of Hell of a Life, the knives in the heart from Blame Game, the guitar solo and Rick Ross feature in Devil in a New Dress, such a great underappreciated track, the guitar riff and some of Kanye's best rapping ever in the song Gorgeous, and the heavy-hitting drums and that heavy-hitting sample in the song Power. The whole album gels together flawlessly, and the visuals that he gave us in the 30-minute short film called Runaway featured all the songs on this album was just so beautiful and elegant in so many ways. The whole album itself was an experience with the visuals, the suits, the lyrics, the music, just such a journey to go through while listening to this project. It's a timeless classic, there's no doubt about it. I don't understand how anyone can say that this isn't his best work, because without a shadow of doubt in my mind, it is his best album of all time. So that is my ranking of Kanye West's discography, but I want to know your ranking. I'm very intrigued with what you would put 1, what would you put last, what would you switch around, and what did I get right? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for coming by. If you're still watching, I very much so appreciate it. If you like the video, hit a like and subscribe to this channel if you love talking music just as much as I do. You can follow me on Instagram, Twitch, and Twitter at EJSpark1. And as always, you know what it is. It's peace, love, I love s'mores. EJ, out.